Something about a Friday for me that, it's hard to beat. Because for so many people, I think that's college football in a sense anyway. They don't really care that much about the game. They just want to go drink and hang out with their buddies. Give me a reason to drink at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, right? So I think... All right, welcome to the WCIA 3-in-1 podcast. Brett Beherns along with Marlee Wierda here. We are up to episode 13. It's been a lot of fun here every Friday, looking back on the week and looking forward as well. But this week we've got, once again, quite a bit to talk about, and we're going to start today with Illinois students back on campus and the plan that was approved on Thursday to get them back on campus. We'll start with that in just a moment. We're going to hear from Josh Whitman on his thoughts about having sports this fall, the NCAA's preseason plan to get football back, and men's and women's basketball. They laid that out this week. A survey sent out to Illinois football season ticket holders this week, just trying to gauge their interest. How are they feeling? Will people be excited to go back to Memorial Stadium? Maybe more importantly, tailgate this fall. We'll explore that coming up. And we'll hear from IHSA Executive Director Craig Anderson. We spoke to him on Wednesday as he was at State Farm Center along with several other big-time shareholders in getting the boys state basketball tournament back to Champaign. But Marlee, how we doing?
Good. It's Friday. Can't complain.
Friday has to be my favorite day of the week. I don't know about you.
I agree.
Positive vibes, especially when it's nice outside like it is today. You're feeling good.
Even though you're at work typically on a Friday, I feel like it's like a different mood than a Saturday or Sunday.
Well, Fridays for us are usually fun,
Yeah.
right? So, it doesn't feel like work to us a lot of times, especially, now it's just kind of whatever. But during the football season for me, it's so much excitement about Friday night. Basketball, too, in that sense. You're just excited for games and the chance to go out into these communities, get some highlights, and then come back for Friday football fever or full court Friday. But, I don't know. Something about Fridays. I don't know why I was thinking about that the other day. Just what's your favorite day of the week?
I have the same feeling. People are like, oh, well, why not Saturday? You don't have to go to work. Well, I have to go to work on Saturdays, but most people, the normal Monday to Friday, people, they're like, oh, well, Saturdays? I'm like, no, I don't know. I like Fridays. I always like Fridays.
Something about a Friday for me that, it's hard to beat.
It hits different.
All right. Let's just jump right into this here with the Illinois students' plan to come back on campus. It's all hinging on us moving to Phase 4, which is supposed to happen 1 week from today, June 26th. The governor is supposed to sign off on moving into Phase 4, groups of 50 people, some more restaurants maybe doing some things differently, seating inside, all those types of things that we're going to be able to move back to Phase 4. I know for me and my kids, they just want to go play on a playground somewhere, little things. So I think it's going to hit everyone a little bit differently, but the U of I Board of Trustees and all of the bigwigs over there sign off on this plan, and we first told you about it yesterday afternoon, that sports essentially are going to happen if students were on campus. And Josh Whitman has said that all along. He's made that abundantly clear. There will be no sports if there aren't students on campus. And so this is a big step in my eyes to us getting sports back. Now, some students are still going to be online curriculum. It's going to be a mixture of both, which I don't think surprised me in that sense. I think this is what everyone expected, and this is what I expect from most schools across the country to do. They're just going to be a mixture. Yes, you might have some classes in person, but I think if possible, these huge lecture halls that I think of a big freshman orientation or whatever, freshman psychology or whatnot, I think that's going to be mostly done online across the country.
No one really goes to those anyway.
Right?
Why didn't we have them in person?
Or pays attention. Maybe you do go, but you're asleep in the back, right?
But those are typically, too, the classes where they post the lectures online anyway, so most students, they're not going to go in person. They're just going to watch whatever happened in class online to begin with. So why not just have it online in its entirety?
And if we're still in Phase 4 at that point, or what I expect to be like a modified Phase 4, Phase 5, I think they're going to have like a 4.5. That would make sense to me to keep this trend moving forward, because overall the numbers show Illinois is actually doing pretty good compared to some of these other states. Now, how once we open more, is there going to be a spike? How is there going to be a rebound and all of that? And I think that's to be expected. But how are all of these students coming back to Champaign-Urbana going to bring in that melting pot, so to speak, of, test happening, and they said that they're going to test 50,000 people, everyone coming back on campus, faculty, staff, students, all of that are going to have a saliva test, which is great that the U of I has the technology and the people and all of that and the development to make that happen. It's phenomenal, and that's hopefully going to change things across the world. But if you're a student athlete, Marlee, how do you feel coming back on campus this fall with all those people from across the world, not just across the country, but truly across the world?
Yeah, and I think that totally affects how they're planning, well, right now, how they're currently isolating athletes. I mean, from what we've heard from the football players that we've talked to this week that have been back for on-campus workouts, I mean, it was a very strict quarantine that they had to go. They had to spend 3 days alone in a dorm room or wherever they were without any contact. Donnie Navarro said there was even protocol for how you got your food. People brought food to you in the dorm rooms. So for this now campus to be opened up to the rest of the student body, how does that affect how they were trying to keep athletes safe? And then how does that trickle to the rest of the conference and the country?
And I think Josh Whitman, and I'm not quoting him here directly, but this is just how I imagine these conversations going to his athletes. Do you want to play this year or not? If you do, you will take these things seriously, and there's a potential we could have a season. I think if anyone tells you right now they know what's going to happen, they're lying, because no one truly knows what's going to happen. I mean, we're less than 2 months away from Illinois opening training camp, according to the model that was laid out by the NCAA this week. And so we're not that far away. And in one sense, in my eyes, it seems like a long way away. And in the complete same sense, it's really not that far away. And so I don't know how these athletes are taking this. I know that the staff is taking it very seriously because they see a lot of dollar signs in getting, athletics back this fall and trying to keep the DIA budget afloat. I mean, think how much money it's already lost this year. If you subtract football from that, which is a huge percentage of the DIA budget, now you're really hurting there, especially for all those other sports. I mean, football included, but like all those other sports like cross country and, men's golf and women's golf and swimming and everything else that relies on football, that's not going to be there. So there's got to be cuts somewhere. I just see the dollar signs in there. So from Josh Whitman, yeah, hey, do you want to play or not?
Right.
And that's the reality. Nobody knows how these athletes are doing right now,
And I think too, obviously I think these athletes want to play and
sure,
do whatever it takes to be able to play, and they say that they're taking this seriously, but in reality, how serious are they really taking it? Because what I took away from the football players, Jamal Woods and Donnie Navarro, that we spoke to on Zoom this week, is you could kind of hear a little bit of their media training coming out.
Yeah.
They kind of addressed, somebody would ask them a question, oh, well, how are you doing this? How are you enjoying that? They would, give their answer and they say, but we understand how serious this is and this situation. I'm like, okay, I get that you're,
sure,
saying that. So I think, with everyone in the country, everyone has their different opinions and how seriously they're taking the virus. And I think that's only the same for some of the athletes. So while, yes, they're going to do what it takes to get on the field this fall, I think, they might not really feel that all the way,
Yeah, and the one thing I do know is that the DIA staff is stressing it to them continuously, right? Like, hey, if you want to play, you've got to follow these things, right? And you just hope that the athletes take that as serious as the DIA is telling them and kind of move on from there. They're not sharing test results, and that was never going to happen with individual names, but they're not even giving numbers out about how many people have tested positive. There's going to be people that test positive, right? And so this is why they spent the last 3 months developing these protocols and everything else and looking how the NBA is doing it and, Major League Baseball or whatever. And that's a whole nother topic if we're even going to get baseball back. But, how the NFL plans to do it. NHL has already rolled out its plan, and so all of these things I think are important in getting college athletics back. But then what happens if X, Y, Z? And then ABC, and we're on plan 8 here, of whatever. What happens if an opponent isn't able to play a game, and do you take the forfeit? I don't know how that all works. I don't have the answers to all of that, but it's a tricky situation to be in. But I asked Josh Whitman this week what his thoughts were as we move in here to the middle of June and looking forward as plans are rolled out for, training camp. It's going to start, and the summers aren't going to look that much different here coming up, starting middle of July, in about a month when the NCAA is approved that, hey, teams, you can go do all this stuff. I don't think it's going to be that much different than it was in the past. And so all eyeing this August training camp date. Are we going to be able to make it? And so that's what I asked Josh Whitman this week, and here's his thoughts on that.
Well, we're really pleased with the process that we've undertaken to bring the student athletes back. It's been a very time-intensive effort. I really tip my hat to our coaches and to the men and women who are part of our program. As we've told them, we can put the best plan in place as possible, which we've done, but if they're not willing to be disciplined in their activities and they're not willing to follow the plan that we've provided, then it really isn't worth the paper it's printed on. And so really proud of the way that our student athletes and our staff have responded. We've started voluntary workouts, I think, as everybody knows now, with the football team, and basketball will get up and running here shortly. And so we're increasingly confident that we'll see sports, the lights come back on in the fall. We're still a ways from those decisions. Obviously, we've got some big decisions to come at the university level first, with regard to the return for in-person instruction in the fall. Assuming that happens, then we're certainly making plans across the Big Ten and around the country to have sports be a part of that experience for our students when they come back.
All right, Whitman says he's increasingly confident. Do you believe that we'll see football this fall, Marlee?
Yeah, I think we will, but I think it will look totally different in what it means for fans and what it means for us as media being able to cover it. I mean, let's say training camp, we had great access to training camp as it was. We were able to film. We obviously have to stay in kind of designated areas, but are they going to even allow us to come out to training camp? Are they going to allow us to film the games? Are they going to allow us in the press box? And then the same thing to be said for fans. What is it going to look like for them? Are people going to be in the stadium? And I think, while it'll be great to see football back in the fall, it's going to look completely different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think whether that's 50%, fans, 25% fans, I don't know what that number is. It's not going to be 100%. I think we all know that. And then are fans even going to want to come to games? Obviously, like you mentioned, you're going to have some part of the population that just doesn't care. You're going to have some part of the population that just stays home. You're going to have another part of the population that just wants to go to the tailgate and keep it under 50 for whatever their group is. Maybe you watch from the tailgate, just being in that atmosphere. Because for so many people, I think that's college football in a sense anyway. They don't really care that much about the game. They just want to go drink and hang out with their buddies. Give me a reason to drink at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, right? So I think, see, that's the reasoning of a winner there. That's how that works out. It's party on, Garth. But, that's why I think Illinois Athletics sent out the survey this week to season ticket holders, just trying to get a gauge, and that's smart in a sense. I was told that a lot of it is trying to find out how much do you want the DIA to be part of that experience in tailgating. Are they going to limit people? Are they going to limit tailgates? Or, how much are they going to enforce that? Because that's still on U of I property. Now, I would not expect any tailgating in Grange Grove. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll shut that off or whatever. But, what about the other lots, Because I think that could be a moneymaker opportunity there as well. They're selling those parking spaces out there. To get into those parking spots, you have to have a parking pass or whatnot. And so that's an opportunity to make revenue. I don't see those going away. I just think they might limit it or try and do it, whatever. I don't know.
That's what some of the NFL teams are doing, is they're, selling the parking spots or the little tailgate lots, but it's every fifth one. So it won't necessarily have that same, tailgatey feel where it's car on top of car on top of car, and, there's 1,000 people in the parking lot. It's going to be much more spread out, which I can anticipate for this football season. I think people will still do, because if you are somebody that, is taking the virus more seriously, but you still want to, go have a college football Saturday.
Yeah.
You might, okay, we have our 10 friends here at the tailgate. We're going to watch it on TV. We're going to eat our hot dogs here in the park.
And, what's wrong with that, right? I don't see anything wrong with that. If you want to take that risk and go out or whatever you want to do, then, you go do it. I think it would be smart from the U of I standpoint to just say, hey, look, you're outside, whatever that may be. The problem, in my eyes, becomes State Farm Center in the fall, with basketball coming back, which would be the first game's usually like the first week in November.
Yeah.
Second week in November, they're rolling out the Illinois basketball team. And so, that's indoors. And to me, that becomes troublesome when even if you're socially distanced, just being indoors, the germs are contained a lot more. You're outside of Memorial Stadium. That's one thing. But, coming inside, I think that presents a whole lot of new problems. And especially that's about the time flu season kicks up again. Once again, so many questions that I don't think any of us know.
I don't even think we'll be able to shoot on the baseline where we usually film from.
Right.
On a game where, it's a big game, it's a conference game, we're like
Yeah.
on top of each other. Like the photographers, some people are sitting in the back row. Like it is a cluster of people. So I can't imagine we'll be allowed to film basketball games, which is unfortunate because those are my favorite ones.
And you can't really. Oh, well, I mean, you can, right? So, like, in Memorial Stadium, it's just a lot of the bench seats, right? So you can kind of space that a little easier, right?
It's a football field. You have
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot more space, so to speak, at Memorial Stadium than there is at State Farm Center. And so, are they going to go every other seat at State Farm Center? Every third seat? I mean, those are questions that they're already obviously thinking about. And I chatted with the director of State Farm Center, Kevin Yulstead, on Wednesday at the press conference there, because I was just curious, what his job has been like here. They haven't had an event since March 11th, I think he said, and they've had to cancel about 15 to 20 events in that time that they already had planned. The interesting thing to me was he's booking big-time concerts a year out.
right.
And when you start thinking about all of these concerts that State Farm Center has, I mean, there's some big acts that come through here. They're spending a lot of money, State Farm Center is, to get these acts in here. Obviously, they make money off of it, or else they wouldn't do it. But, where does the entertainment industry come back in that sense, especially inside? I could see an amphitheater outside being fine, but I think the entertainment industry, in terms of concerts and comedy and all of that, that could be one of the last things back because
They're just shut down in the winter.
I wouldn't surprise me if a year from now we're just starting to see concerts come back. It could be a full year plus of no concerts, from all these artists. And it's not just the artists, right? It's the people on the road and the sound techs and the light people. And there's so many people, the rigging crew that puts up the stage and all of that, there's so many people affected by that. And I hadn't really thought a ton about that, from the entertainment industry, because all ours, well, I'm just so focused on sports all the time, but, that's a huge thing that and Kevin just said all they're focused on is getting basketball back.
Right.
And in my eyes, I don't know if that is a guarantee at this point, right? I mean, I don't know. It presents so many more complications than football in my eyes.
I totally agree. Just because of the spacing, the indoors thing.
And even in football, right, like you're wearing a helmet. And did you see those cool masks this week that they put out, like the NFL? It kind of reminded me of a lacrosse mask a little bit, right? It's like you could shield some more stuff in that, which I thought was positive. Like that's an advancement. In basketball, you're just breathing on each other all the time.
I don't know. What are they going to make them wear? Are they going to have to wear masks when they play?
I mean,
No, would you?
I don't know.
Back and players wear
Is that even possible? I mean, I guess anything's possible, right? But how would you function in that? I think I'd get so mad, just flinging the thing off or whatever. Or where does a sport like wrestling come back? Now they talk about physical contact, I don't know.
At the same time, that one could probably be easier to control in the sense because it's this athlete against this athlete. There's not really
Sure.
It's weight class on weight class. You're only really coming in contact with one other.
Right.
So,
And if you got tested before, I guess that's a big difference. But you're sharing the mat space. Are they going to clean the mat after every thing? I don't know. I don't have the answers to all this.
a couple mats and then they rotate.
Oh man. And that's fine in college. They have the testing available. But what about high school?
High school across the board is going to be more difficult than college.
Right, because there's just not the test there, right? And we've spent time talking about this in the past. And this is a question that I brought up to Craig Anderson this week of how confident he feels about sports coming back even in the fall. And I asked him that very question. And then there was a lot of things we talked about in the press conference on Wednesday. We were supposed to just be talking about the State Farm Center, but of course I have other questions, Marlee. I got a lot more other things to talk about than just the boys basketball state tournament. That was announced on Monday that it was coming back to Champaign for the first time in 25 years. It spent 1919 through 1995 all in Champaign, 77 years, mixed between Huff Hall, where the volleyball team plays now, and what we know as State Farm Center, then Assembly Hall. And so, that was announced Monday. The story had already kind of played out by Wednesday when they were here for their in-person interviews. And it was the first time we chatted with Josh Whitman or Brad Underwood live since March. That press conference on the fateful Friday, the day after the Big Ten tournament and NCAA seasons were canceled, that's the last time we've talked to them in person. Now, we've had some Zooms and some opportunity to see them, but not face-to-face. It was refreshing just to have a in-person interview. They looked good. They looked refreshed. I think they've been super busy, especially Josh Whitman. Say, oh, nothing's going on. Well, in their world, everything's been going on. They only got a lot busier with everything canceled, trying to figure out how to work, athletes back onto campus and all of that. But you heard from Josh Whitman. Here's Craig Anderson on how confident he feels that we're going to have football and sports this fall.
I like the movement of, number one, that we right now today have students out with activity. They're with coaches, they're with teammates, yet in small groups, doing some conditioning and agility. I like the fact that we're trending towards being in phase 4, hopefully at some point late June, early July. And for us, we're hopeful that gets our students back to what we know as summer contact days with skill instruction. Camps will be able to go on with some limited competition, small groups, no more than 50, of course, meeting the guidelines. But it helps me think that we're trending towards, again, with a month and a half yet to start practice in early August, that we're trending towards having fall sports, which would hopefully lead us into, obviously, sports without a spike or those kind of things that would cause disappointment for all of us, for sure.
Did you see a separation, like some sports being played and others not, or some parts of the state playing but others not, or is this like an all or nothing type thing in your eyes?
No, I don't see it as an all or nothing at this point. Our students have been away long enough, lost an entire spring season. So if we can and we have permission to have some activities, we're going to let our kids compete, practice and compete. And so we may see some modified scheduling, some reduced seasons, but we're going to do whatever we can under the restrictions that we're limited to proceed with caution, but to get our students back reaping from all the benefits of what participation really has to benefit them.
So Anderson says he likes the way the IHSA is trending at this point. We've talked in the past about how we don't feel that it's very optimistic. I don't know. I can't see it at this point. I hope I'm wrong, but maybe it's being too cautious here. But I just have so many concerns about how this is going to play out. You got to take it one day at a time. But like we mentioned